let's assume for a moment that it does stay on track. We know that tourism has fallen off, that foreign investment presumably has been discouraged. Do you also see a kind of a pathway towards restoring those kinds of activities so that both your business community and the international business community can help contribute to the revival of the Egyptian economy?
I see a pathway, I see a program, and I see a tremendous interest internationally. I mean, given this job in particular, I meet a lot of foreigners, and they're all asking me when they can come in and invest, and they ask about specific details. In other words, there's an interest, and they just want to make sure that what concerns them, whether it's security or investment or arbitration, is there. So there is the international interest because the market's so large. You know, where a quarter of the Middle East lives in Egypt, and it's an 85 million, and I'm counting bureaucratically, so it's obviously more than that. The market is there. We have a very strong tourist sector, infrastructure-wise. It's not being utilized because of the last couple of months, but it's there. We have tremendous consumer potential, energy potential, infrastructure potential. So the market's there. I would add to that the government, the present government, ironically, even though we've had two revolutions, is being characterized as the most liberal government in Egypt's history. Not because I'm there, but because most of the economists are market-oriented economists who have studied in the West. And I can tell you from my own experience, I lean towards help the people part of the debate. They are considerate of that, but they lean towards sustained, correct economic policy side of the debate. And we have therefore put forward an economic program which aims to spend 22 billion pounds, very large percentage of which is on infrastructure. If you want employment-intensive projects. We've also provided liquidity so that the government can pay back its arrears to contractors, to oil companies. That puts money into the market. It also gives a strong message to investors that you're going to get your money, that the system is working. So I actually believe that any investor today sees everything he wants in Egypt available. The only concern they still may have is security going to be sustainable or not? And that's why, frankly, we're working on that element quite strongly. It is much, much better than it was a couple of months ago. It's secure in the overwhelming, all over Egypt. There are some minor areas where it's not secure, and those areas, frankly, are not investment targets anyway.
Have you gotten to the point that the government is proactively encouraging foreign investment or having road shows or anything like that, or is it too soon for that, in your opinion?
No, we actually started 2 days ago with, a week ago, I'm jet lagged, excuse me, with a conference in London, and then recently just in Terrytown, talking to not the business sector directly in Terrytown, but talking to people who are, if you want, advisors to the business sector, who would give political analysis to what's happening in the country. So the long answer to that is yes. And I think, and we also have significant interest with real cash dividends from the Gulf already. This will move very, very quickly, provided we have security.
So perhaps you're mentioning the Gulf provides a useful transition to the issue of Egypt's foreign policy. And I guess the two areas that I'd be interested in hearing about would be, first, the relationship with the United States. How do you see that at the moment, given the fact that it's been such an important bilateral relationship in past years? And I think we'd be interested in your evaluation of that. And then perhaps after that, maybe a discussion of the situation in the region and Egypt's approach to the rest of the Middle East.
Look, we see ourselves as a major regional power that has an internationalist bent to it. And we live on two seas, literally in two continents at the same time. Our four strategic interests are either completely or partially brought in from abroad. Water, energy, food, and defense equipment. So if those are your four significant interests, and there's a strong foreign component, you have to have relations with the world. You can't live in isolation. If you're going to have relations with the world, you can't ignore America. I say this not to give the impression that we do this grudgingly. No, I say this to make the point very clear. We do this, it serves our national interest to do it. And because it does, this relationship will be sustainable. And it will continue. There will be good times and bad times. But neither Egypt nor America has the luxury of saying, I've had enough of this. Because if you have interest in the Middle East, you can't ignore a quarter of the Middle East. A quarter of the Middle East with the longest history in the Middle East and the widest cultural network in the Middle East. And what I mean by this is, look, almost all of the new political, economic, and social trends in the Middle East over the years have come out of Egypt. Not only the good ones, also the bad ones. So if you really want to know what's going to happen in the future, you really better understand what's happening in Egypt. And you need to find a way to have this relationship. But let me address the challenges, because I think that's an important point. The main challenge we're facing now is America doesn't know how to deal with the Arab people. You've never had to do that. You always dealt with the Arab governments. And since the Arab governments, I mean, you would argue, well, that's normal. It is. But if we were all Democrats, then dealing with the governments means you're dealing with the people. Frankly, we had a governance deficiency or a governance deficit. Therefore, dealing only with the governments doesn't mean you're relating to the people. It's different now. You're going to have to deal with the people, which means short-term as well as long-term policies. You can't ignore the fact that what you do now affects public opinion, because that public opinion will affect our policies. While in the past, frankly, even myself, I could ignore it. When I was a professional diplomat, the time span between how quickly and when the public is angry or happy and how it affects the change in policy was quite long. Now, frankly, I'll share with you another quick story, but then move on. I had a meeting with Secretary Kerry on Sunday. You walk into these meetings, the first thing you do is take a picture. And by the time you got the press in and out, one of my colleagues gave me his phone, and it had the picture of Secretary Kerry and myself. We hadn't even sat down yet. And the comment was, have a good meeting, but don't compromise. So I didn't know who this was. This was simply a tweet. Mm-hmm. People were following in real time, split second. And it came back to me even before I sat down. So yes, I will be governed more and more by my domestic politics, as you are in America. We need each other. We're going to have to manage. I mean, you know, I spent a lot of my time in Congress, and I gave hundreds of speeches when I was here because that's how America works. Mm-hmm. It's going to be that way, maybe to a different degree, but it can be that way also in our part of the world. It's going to be more complicated. But do we need you? Definitely. Will we need you? Yes. Will we have a engaged relationship? Yes. And vice versa. But we both have work to do. There's much more anti-Americanism in the Middle East than there was to be in the past. Again, because the public is emotional. In the past, even when Americans complained to me, the public was not emotional. They weren't engaged in this. Now they are. And there's also concern, and I speak as the Egyptian foreign minister, because of our events over the last 2.5 years, a lot of which I'm very proud of, by the way. People here are wondering, what are we doing, where are we going? And I have spent half of this week explaining it.